right, so we're diving into some real legal drama this time, huh? The European Consumer Organization, BEUC. They're really taking on some gaming giants.
Yeah, this isn't just like a couple of upset players sending angry emails. We're talking Activision, Ubisoft, EA, even Epic Games, the Fortnite folks.
Wow, okay, so this is big. What's the BEUC's issue exactly? What are they saying these companies are doing?
They're using the term unfair commercial practices and focusing on those virtual currencies, like the stuff we all run into.
Right, those in-game currencies, yeah?
Exactly. And they're claiming these companies use, well, some might say sneaky tactics to get players to spend more than they intended. And it's serious enough that they're calling on the European Commission to intervene.
So this is like courtroom showdown type stuff, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And a big concern they highlight is how these tactics, they say, disproportionately impact younger players, kids who might not fully grasp, the real world value of money.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. So let's break this down a bit. What are some of these sneaky tactics they're talking about?
One of the biggest that the BEUC calls out is this idea of abstraction. They use Fortnite's V-Bucks as a really clear example.
Okay, Fortnite, everyone knows Fortnite, so I'm listening.
So picture this. You're trying to get a new skin, right, for your character, and it costs, say, 950 V-Bucks.
Seems simple enough, right?
Right. But here's the catch. You can't buy exactly 950 V-Bucks. The smallest pack they sell is 1,000.
I see where this is going. So you're left with extra V-Bucks, not enough to get anything else, but it feels like you're so close to affording something new.
Precisely. They're intentionally leaving you hanging, hoping you'll just spend a little more to grab something else from the store, and then boom, you've spent way more than you were planning to.
It's like that feeling when you're at like an arcade, using those tokens instead of actual money. Suddenly, 20 tokens for a stuffed animal doesn't feel like that big of a deal, even if it's like 5 times the cost in actual cash.
Perfect analogy. It's tapping into what's called the money illusion, right? Because you're not dealing with dollars and cents directly, it's easier to lose track of what it's actually costing you. And the BEUC argues this is where it gets especially concerning for younger players who haven't fully developed those, healthy financial habits yet.
So it's like they're being conditioned to think about spending in this digital world way differently than they would in the real world.
Exactly. And the BEUC claims that's what these companies are banking on. They're using these psychological tricks to be blunt, encourage overspending. Their argument is just because it's pixels on a screen doesn't mean the real-world rules about consumer protection shouldn't apply.
Okay, I get that, but where does a game like Fortnite fit into all of this specifically?
Well, the article we're looking at, it points to Fortnite as a particularly kind of stark example, mostly because of how insanely popular it is, especially with younger players. This isn't some niche game. We're talking millions and millions potentially being exposed to these tactics.
And it's not like those V-Bucks are just for buying a skin here or there.
Yeah.
We're talking a whole in-game economy, battle passes, emotes, everything, all running on these virtual currencies.
Absolutely. The BUC's point isn't just about one small purchase here or there. They're saying this is a pattern, right, across tons of games and platforms, that it all adds up to a bigger issue of, well, maybe manipulative monetization practices in the gaming world as a whole.
So it's like a drip, drip, drip effect, right?
Yeah.
Each purchase on its own might not seem like much, but it all adds up.
Exactly. And the BUC's arguing enough of those drips, and you've got a flood of problems, especially for players who might be more vulnerable to this kind of thing. That's why they're pushing for more transparency from these gaming companies, maybe even stricter rules when it comes to these in-game purchases.
So essentially, they're trying to hold these companies accountable, saying, look, you can't just hide behind the fact that it's just a video game. Real money's being spent here, and real consumer protection needs to happen.
Exactly. And that brings up another layer to all of this. Where does the responsibility lie? Is it on the gaming companies, or does it fall on the players themselves? Something to think about.
Definitely a lot to unpack there. Yeah, and, it's easy for anyone to kind of get caught up in that, especially if you're not used to, like, budgeting or even just thinking that money has limits.
And that's a huge GE part of what the BEUC is saying. They're arguing that these systems, they're built to obscure the real cost on purpose. Like, it makes it way easier to overspend without even realizing it.
So it's not just like a side effect. It's intentional.
That's what they're suggesting. They even have a term for it, obfuscation by design.
Obfuscation by design. Wow. Okay, so how does that actually work, though?
Well, it goes back to that abstraction idea we were talking about. By creating this, separation between the V-Bucks or whatever currency and your actual cash,
Right.
they're kind of creating a loophole in your brain.
Okay, I think I get it. It's like when those casinos, right? They
Yeah.
use chips instead of cash.
Exactly.
You're way less likely to be like, "Whoa, another $100," when it's just like some colorful chips going into the pot.
It's all about messing with how we see value. And the BEUC, they say this is even more worrisome when you're talking about kids and teenagers. Think about it. They're growing up with this stuff everywhere. All these virtual currencies, in-app purchases. It's just part of their world.
It's becoming totally normal for them.
Exactly. And if nobody's showing them how to, handle it responsibly, it's a recipe for problems later on. It's not just about blowing an allowance on a game. It's about making sure they have good money habits for, real life.
So what do we do then? More rules, better parental controls, or do we need to rethink this whole virtual economy thing from the ground up?
Well, the BEC definitely thinks stricter rules are needed, yeah. They want way more transparency from these companies, actually showing you how much those virtual items cost in real money and being upfront about the chances of, say, getting that cool item from a loot box.
So warning labels, but for spending. Instead of smoking kills, it's V-Bucks can hurt your bank account.
Exactly. Make sure people, especially younger players, really get what they're spending. But beyond just rules, I think education is huge here, too. We got to be talking to kids about spending responsibly, even when it's in the digital world.
Like it's digital stranger danger or something.
Exactly. It's about giving them the info and skills to make smart choices, to understand that even if it seems like a small purchase right now, it can add up.
And that's not just for kids either. Even as adults, we get caught up in the moment, that feeling of getting something new and exciting or getting ahead in a game.
Oh, totally. These tactics are made to get to us no matter our age. So that's why it's so important to take a breath, ask yourself, am I choosing this or am I being played?
It's that whole buyer beware thing, but for the 21st century.
Right. You got to be your own advocate, do your research, really understand the systems you're getting into.
So the responsibility shifts then from the gaming company to the players themselves.
In a way, yeah. It's about having the power to make our own smart decisions about spending online, knowing what the risks are, and finding that balance between having fun with games and staying in control of our money.
So there's a lot to consider here, right? We've got these systems that some people say are pretty predatory, especially toward younger players. But then there's this whole side of personal responsibility, too. It's up to us to make smart choices about spending, even in a game. How do we balance that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And honestly, this is a conversation that's only going to get more important as these virtual economies keep growing. We're talking serious money here, billions of dollars. And it's getting harder to tell where the game ends and real life begins.
Right. When you catch yourself thinking, wait, did I just spend more on fake furniture and Animal Crossing than I did on my actual couch?
Exactly. We laugh, but it shows how much these virtual economies have become part of our lives now. And with that comes responsibility, both for the companies making these games and for us playing them to make sure it's all, sustainable, ethical, all that.
So, if we're thinking about this as players, what are some actual things we can do to be smarter about our spending in games?
Well, for me, it always starts with awareness, right? Just realizing that a lot of these systems, they're made to push our buttons, fear of missing out, wanting something exclusive, or even just liking to collect stuff. Once you see that, it's easier to resist that impulse buy.
That's like when you figure out how a magic trick works.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's not as impressive anymore.
Exactly. And then it's about setting your own rules. Decide how much you're cool with spending on a game and stick to it. Maybe even use a prepaid card or put spending limits on your account so you don't get any nasty surprises on your bank statement.
What about talking to kids about all this? Where do you even start?
Oh, it's a conversation worth having for sure. And it doesn't have to be this big lecture. Just ask them about the games they like, what they're saving up for, the currencies they use. Make it a back and forth.
So meet them where they're at, but bring some money knowledge to the table.
Exactly. Help them figure out what those virtual items are actually worth, the difference between something you need and something you want, that kind of thing. You might be surprised how much they already get it.
So it's less about don't spend money on games and more about teaching them to be smart about it.
Right. Because those skills, they're not just for games.
Right.
Being smart with money online, that's going to help them in the real world too. It's all connected.
That's a great point to end on, I think. We've gone over a lot today. Legal stuff, the psychology of spending, how to have good gaming habits, all of it. And look, there are no easy answers here, but hopefully this deep dive got you thinking. Maybe even inspired you to check your own spending habits in games.
It's a conversation we need to keep having, that's for sure. These virtual worlds are only getting bigger, so we got to make sure we're ready for them.